Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. With that, we move on to the all-star panel discussion titled Automating Customer Interactions, Evolution and Maturity of Conversational Intelligence. And it's an honor and privilege to first introduce the all-star team, starting with Benjamin Bosch, Chief Digital Officer at VFS Global, Ganesh Suryanarayanan, Chief Technology Officer at Mylan Foundry, Ganesh Gopalan, co-founder and chief executive officer at Jnani.ai, and Neil Barman, chief growth officer at Yellow.ai. This session will be moderated by Ashwin Gupta, conversational intelligence lead at PwC. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions for the panel, kindly place your question in the Q&A box. Time permitting, we will definitely take a few questions. Ashwin, the virtual floor is all yours with your all-star team.
Thank you, Ivan. Thank you so much. A very good afternoon to everyone. Hope you and your family are safe in these difficult times. And welcome to the Economic Times Intelligent Automation Summit 2021. It gives me immense pride and honor to be part of this event and to be part of this esteemed panel. Before we get started, I would give a quick perspective to our audience in terms of what conversational AI is and how does it help automate customer interactions, and then hand it over to the esteemed panelists who, interestingly, are a mix of both adopters and providers of conversational AI, to hear their experiences in terms of adoption, maturity, technology maturity, challenges that they've seen in their journey. Time permitting, I will also try and key in few questions from the audience, else we can park it to a later stage. To start off, any business has a customer base, or any business will have a customer base. And in B2C, it can be end consumers, and in B2B, it can be dealers or distributors or area managers, so on and so forth. We have also seen employees of an organization also termed as customers for an HR department. These customers interact with businesses constantly, day in, day out, and it becomes imperative for businesses to transform how these customers, or how to engage with the customers, and how to automate the customer interactions to grow and to sustain. For example, we've a decade ago, a few years ago, we've all gone to the bank, walked into a bank to deposit a check or cash, or to do those rudimentary activities. But we have also seen the banking transform from internet banking to mobile banking, and now to voice banking or WhatsApp banking. This transformation of how businesses engage with customers is very important. Not just customers, but even business leaders have now started using virtual agents to get real-time insights. For example, how does my sales look this month, or what are my revenue projections compared to this year compared to the last year? All of this information is right at their fingertips in real time, and customers or leaders or any of the users would just use the most convenient and the natural way of conveying these queries to the systems, which is either voice or text. And conversational AI enables to build solutions around this and helps businesses to transform how they engage with customers. We've all been through pandemic, and we hope the pandemic gets over quickly. But with the advent of pandemic, the need for contactless and touchless solutions have increased multifold. But having said that, and having seen the conversational AI being adopted in bits and pieces and pockets, we would like to hear more from our expert panelists on their view on the business considerations that are required to embark on a conversational AI journey. How is it part of the digital transformation? What are the technology challenges or process people challenges that they have seen during their journey? And is the technology itself mature enough to be adopted enterprise-wide? So this takes us to this session where I would start off with Mr. Ganesh Ji, if I could address you that way, because we have two Ganeshes in the panel. what are the key considerations that you would look at to adopt voice, or business considerations to adopt voice in a contact center?
So thanks, Ashwin. And so fundamentally, you look at contact centers and you think of customer experience. So the key reason why any contact center or any customer would adopt voice automation would be the overall CX. I mean, yesterday I made a call to my phone banking, and all I needed was a really old, bank statement, which my tax consultant asked for. And it took me like 3 minutes to get to the agent. And secondly, I had to traverse an IVR tree, which I think IVRs are probably, something that, totally goes against the whole customer experience concept. So that's where, conversational AI comes in, right? And so this whole concept of conversational AI is very important for customers to firstly offer a better experience to their end customers. Secondly, look at scale, right? I mean, you have a lot of these growing companies. And I was talking to, again, an insurance company last week. And he said, look, I'm starting a new process, and my support team tells me that I need 200 agents to be hired within a month, right? And it's not easy to go about all these operational hassles. If we had all these business processes at the tip of our fingers, right? And we could scale whenever we wanted to and scale down whenever we wanted to, this is again fantastic. The third consideration is obviously also efficiency, right? And, this whole voice automation piece brings a lot of efficiency to the whole, I would say, customer experience that customers are looking for. So in short, I would say these are the top 3 business considerations. First and foremost, customer experience. Secondly, the ability to scale. And thirdly, the huge efficiency benefits. So if these 3 are satisfied, businesses say, hey, this is great. Let's take up voice automation for this purpose.
Thank you so much, Ganesh ji. A very important point that you mentioned was experience. That is imperative for the customer to, what we call customer stickiness, to come back to the business again and again. If the experience is bad, then it becomes difficult to retain the customer as well. On that note, Ben, Ganesh spoke about customer experience. How do you look at experience when you're handling close to 100 million visits to your websites, with 1,400 websites that you have across the globe, and so many customers with so many different languages coming in? How do you look at customer experience achieved using conversational AI, and is it part of your digital transformation strategy as well?
Thanks, Ashwin. I think if I would say no, I'd probably be thrown off the call. Of course it is. It's a very important topic for us, though it's not the most important one. We are in the business of reducing what I would call TTT, time to travel. It's our endeavor to make travel easier for our more than 30 million applicants we have per year, and to reduce the time they spend with us and make it as easy as possible. As such, we have conducted a lot of customer studies and have observed the behavior, and have found that a good web interface, especially for the interactions we have, such as form filling or data entry, document uploads, payment, is still faster. And I'm phrasing it cautiously, still faster than a conversational interface. On the other hand, and especially in the context of the pandemic, conversational interfaces have gotten more important for all the cases where, let's say, the vanilla journey that we offer on our websites doesn't work because there's some complexities or complications occurring. And of course, we have seen more and more of them during the pandemic, unfortunately. At the same time, we have customers that are more used to such interfaces, which is a great opportunity. So that the challenge has gotten bigger during the pandemic. At the same time, easier since the adoption has gotten more accentuated.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for those insights. Interesting to see and also understand TTT. I think that was the first time for me to hear that we have heard of AHTs and other aspects, but TTT is something that I would take back as a takeaway as well. Neil, Ganesh spoke about contact center, customer experience. Benjamin spoke about how it is part of the digital transformation, and with pandemic coming in, how is it affecting that? How can you share the key considerations when you have interacted with your set of customers? What are the key considerations that they would look at, or what are the key considerations that you would advise them on scaling a conversational AI program?
Thanks, Ashwin, and a very good afternoon to everybody. Now, to start with, you touched upon how the pandemic has changed the experience that we're living in. So to start with that, see, the last 18 months has been a period of many firsts. We have completely moved from, I mean, we are in a complete different zone in terms of how we live, how we interact, how we shop. So we are living in a new experience renaissance today. So interestingly, there's a Chinese proverb which says, "May you live in interesting times." And to counter that, there's an Eskimo saying which says, "Storm is the time to fish." So what we have seen is that customer experience today has become a primary brand or a competitive differentiator. So taking a few takeaways from what Ganesh was saying about his experience of dealing with the bank and the IVR tree, we are all familiar with the phrase when we call a traditional banking system which says, "Please listen carefully as our menu options have changed." And that's where conversational AI comes in. So if you make experience more seamless, you will see adoption happening more faster. And pandemic kind of pushed us to cater to this adaptability from a provider, as a technology provider standpoint. And then from the brand standpoint, it kind of pushed the brands to absorb and adopt this much faster than they would have thought about. So some of my experiences have been just when the pandemic, just when we were struck with the pandemic, a few of our customers with base across Southeast Asia were finding it quite challenging to push the entire workforce to work remotely. Because of this, there were huge call queues, there were huge interaction queues, because everybody was in a state of dilemma as to what's going to happen next. That's when we saw the adoption of the platform happen very rapidly, and the time it took for the human settlement or the workforce resourcing to happen, conversational AI kind of stood as a supporting mechanism for them to keep the business continuity in their processes. So from that standpoint, the importance of adopting conversational AI is a primary differentiator for any brand, and how brands are adopting it. To talk about that, probably this is a learning from the pandemic, that you have all your enterprise systems, which are traditionally your system of records. If you put conversational AI at the heart of your enterprise IT landscape, and you connect all these enterprise applications to conversational AI, functions which can be internal as well as external, which you spoke about, you touched upon briefly, can actually be seamlessly driven by conversational AI.
Thanks, Neil. That was a very interesting perspective, especially with what the brand needs to look at, what the business needs to look at, and also bring an angle of technology to it. A very interesting perspective. Thanks for that. But taking from here, Ganesh, yes, how do you see customer interactions being transformed? Because with the advent of pandemic, you see touchless, contactless solutions coming in. Do you see Edge AI being the next big thing where you are looking at touchless and contactless or automating customer interactions with no latency?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, if you permit me, when you talk about conversational AI, I'd like to call it experiential AI on the edge, because conversation is one experience, but there are many experiences that you can have with AI. Like we all have had AI experiences in the cloud. What's different is on the edge, you have the ability to interact the closest with the consumer or with the user, and those are through devices, through different mechanisms. So edge AI actually now has the ability to transform these experiences through three paradigms that we look at it, where we are from. Basically, it has to be content aware, context aware, and device aware. So what I mean by that is, what is the context of that user? What is the content he's interacting with, and what kind of system or device he uses? So these three things lets you choose the way you want to interact and have this entire experience with the customer. So for instance, if it's a context, you could look at his language, his location, his social profile, his normal profile. If it's a content, is he gaming? Is he watching something? Is he doing UGC? Is he doing Twitch, for instance? So, and if it's a device, is he on a 4K device? Is he on a mobile? Is he on 4G? Is he on 5G? So you look at all these paradigms and you say there are three pillars: context aware, content aware, device aware. With these, the ability to do AI on the edge in real time is how things are going to go. And you have to look at it with these three pillars. It is a way to look at it with these three pillars and take it forward. So that's how we see transformation will occur using technology and edge.
Wow. This is really educative because I'm learning a lot of things, and I hope the audience are also learning a lot of things: context aware, content aware, and device aware. Thanks for that, Ganesh. So we have all heard of the business considerations, or even the tech considerations, even consumer experience considerations that needs to be taken into account to build solutions around it. And conversation AI is a lever of solution in it. But in terms of scale, right? I haven't come across a lot of websites which are having 100 million visits. Ben, how do you look at scale in terms of conversational AI, and what are the challenges that you've seen, especially around the policies, because a lot of governments are involved, and when you try and bring in a transformative technology or a process, there might be policy changes or privacy changes. So can you please share some insights on that?
Sure. First, we love challenges and we love constraints, because I'm convinced that it helps us build better products. I think in a constraint-free environment, you have too many degrees of freedom to actually build something that sees the light of day in a meaningful period of time. So we embrace those challenges. And maybe to start with what you mentioned, Ashwin, we are acting and working with highly sensitive information in a highly sensitive process. And we do so with more than 60 governments. And quite understandably, there are significant apprehensions about AI, whichever way this term is interpreted by many of our client governments. As such, we actually try to avoid the term and usually use machine learning instead, because it evokes less reactions generally in conversations. We have to be mindful of that. Also, in terms of privacy, we have learned, again, through customer insight, that our customers would love to interact with us on the platforms they know already. That's a WhatsApp or WeChat in China, or even a Facebook Messenger. And then, of course, this clashes with our data protection standards to some extent, and any conversation that involves critical or sensitive information has then to be reviewed with a lot of scrutiny, and if it's actually possible. So it's a trade-off, right? So either we use a proprietary platform that is less used to interact across sensitivities or not. And last but not least, I think people, I have found personally, and many of you probably would have experienced that as well, as soon as we look at the conversational interface, our expectations are far, far higher compared to a website. Because a website basically delegates some of the work to us. It says, okay, here's the information, we have a navigation, you find what you need, right? And if you don't find it, it's your fault. That's at least how we perceive it, right? In a conversational interface, this doesn't happen. We actually delegate the responsibility back to the interface and say, well, I'm just telling you what I want. If you don't give me an answer, you're stupid. So the expectation is far higher, and I think in many cases we haven't met that expectation yet. And as such, we are quite cautious to manage that expectation and coming back to constraints. So we offer certain interactions through our conversation interface, but we clearly limit them and do not raise the expectation that we can solve any kind of problem through these interfaces. We would love to, but we accept, and again, especially during the pandemic, that we can't solve everything, and are very clear in conveying that, knowing that we are in a line of business that is high in anxiety. Nobody would like to miss meeting their loved ones or go to an important business meeting because they didn't fulfill all the requirements for a visa application.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. A very interesting perspective of how to set customer expectations. I mean, bang on, because when I started using a virtual agent initially, I thought it could do everything in the world. But only thing it could do was just give me a weather update. So, on that point, I think we have a question from the audience as well, which is very pertaining to what you spoke, Ben. But I'll be happy if any of you can take this question. It says that the person visited a chatbot on the bank, and it had only a preset questionnaire, and it did not have any AI in it. So any of you would want to take that question, or of how this perception can be changed, or how customers are perceiving conversational AI agents, and how do we set the expectations of the customers, or do we have to improve the technology itself or the solution itself?
Yeah, I see Neil has unmuted. He's ready to fire.
I was taking cue, Ben, from when you spoke about the conversational expectation. I wanted to answer that, but the question came very, very relevant to what you just spoke. So Ashwin, I'll like to take the question if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, so Ben, what you spoke about, right, in terms of conversation being at the helm of customer experience. A website probably is a repository of information. I think what we primarily look at today is conversation design and the intelligence that an user can derive from what's there across any of the content repository that a brand does have. Now, in terms of interacting with a chatbot which can only give a preset question, I think that was chatbot 1.0, but we have moved further away from that. I mean, today we even had expectations of chatbot and voice interactions happening in a complete offline model as well, where you won't even have dependency on the internet to answer to queries. I think we have moved far away from that, where repetitive, low effort, low cost tasks were being looked at as what a chatbot can do. Today, we have bots who are handling anything from, your banking requirement to your insurance renewals to even approving your financial loans. So I think the ecosystem has evolved tremendously. A lot of tailwind from the pandemic in order to enable that, and whether it be website, whether it be WeChat, WhatsApp, the focus of the brands today is being visible, equipped, and being present where the customers are available. And as I'd mentioned earlier, so if you're creating a digital assistance model and bringing automation into your technology ecosystem, and you have all your system of records available, then it's equally capable to even refer to historic data or maybe the demographic or the psychographic data of the customer and offer the same personalization or the personalized conversation to a customer or consumer who would have otherwise interacted with a human agent. So I think that's where brands are moving to, and would love to see brands adopting this faster so that we can share this experience with customers.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks for that. I think this question was very promptly answered by both Ben and Neil, giving their views on setting customer expectations and also how technology is maturing to provide or meet those expectations. Now, when we speak about expectations, the technology also has to mature to meet those expectations for us to build those intelligent solutions. So, Ganesh ji, do you think voice, as you are a CEO of a voice platform, do you think voice is mature enough now? Do you see customers being a little skeptical to talk to the voice assistants? And how do you see in your roadmap of how do you see in your foresee in your roadmap of bringing more innovative solutions for voice to help adoption better?
Yeah, I think good question, because I think voice technologies have been sort of right from the start of computing, right? And I think the very first AT&T systems tried to adopt some sort of a voice technology, even in the 50s. Right, but the good part is that with DNNs and the latest stuff in machine learning coming in, today voice is a technology that is being solved more and more, right? And so we fundamentally do deep tech, right? And so what we have seen is voice has reached a level where it is acceptable. When I say voice, I mean the voice technology reached a level that is acceptable to end customers, irrespective of the channel, right? I mean, when we look at channels like, let's say, a mobile channel, which is typically a 16K kind of channel, or when you look at, say, telephony channel, which often is the customers think is most challenging, which is like an 8K channel. By research on ensuring that you have, say, separate models for, say, a 16K channel, an 8K channel, or as Ganesh has mentioned, an on-dev kind of application, right? Now, you on the on-dev might have an all-neural model. You could have a DNN-based model. So the fundamental thing is the technology has arrived, right? And all the pretenses of the past are passé now, right? I mean, in several cycles when people said, look, voice technology is here now, but it hasn't been there. But today, the good news is that this is kind of real, right? And we are seeing, the technology really progressing to a stage where customers are starting to really see the benefits of it. Again, a couple of points on your question on adoption, right? And one of the key aspects of adoption that customers think about is security, right? And multiple ways in which we work with end customers to solve these problems. First and foremost, obviously, huge restrictions on the data we handle, making sure that customers' data is protected, so on and so forth. But the other thing that I foresee the next coming, I would say, years, and we are already seeing that with quite a few customers, is use of voice biometrics. And we are, for that reason, we have recently launched, I think around 6 months back, a voice biometrics homegrown proprietary platform, which we think is very important, because we tend to underestimate often human intelligence to detect things like fraud, right? And when you start automating these systems, you need to ensure that at least the same level of security that a human being offers, plus a lot of additional features, right? That will ensure that customers feel safe, that there is no human being overseeing a particular, let's say, voice process. This is definitely an important factor. The other thing that we see, where we see, adoption from customers is field trials, right? And the most important thing that I would say is have customers the ability to experience a product within a couple of days. One of the fears that customers have is all this AI is really arcane technology. We don't want to be giving our data. We don't want to be, our concern is that you guys will go and research the data and come back after 3 months. So I think the key aspect in customer adoption is to sell it like any other piece of software, right? And that's when customers are going to see the benefits and say that, look, I have this business process that is already trained for you. Like we do a lot of, for example, work with insurance companies, we do a lot of work with banks. We have this particular, say, car insurance process that is already ready for you, right? And would you like to try it within a couple of days, right? And that really is what customers need, and that will what give customers the confidence to adapt these technologies faster, right? And not hesitate to take these things, because there are enormous benefits that customers who have adopted it early are experiencing it today, right? And I would encourage more and more customers to field trial these technologies, and they would very quickly see the benefits.
Thanks, Ganeshji, for that. Totally sold on your point that yes, voice technologies have been there for a long time, and now it's matured to be used and to be used right. I can actually give an example of a very personal example. My mom uses voice to order medicines on an e-commerce app, and I was very surprised to see her do that, because usually medicines or pharma industry, the ontology is very unique. It's difficult for solutions to understand, and especially to understand the different pronunciations. And when I saw her doing that, that is when I realized that yes, it is mature enough now. Coming to Ganesh, yes. So Ganesh Ji spoke about offline devices, and they are very similar to or offline solutions, and they're very similar to edge AI. But where do you see these being applied or these being adopted, and especially in the customer interaction side?
Sure. So before I answer that, again, like I said, there are some drivers, there are some methods of thinking about this. If you look at the drivers for Edge AI, there are a few drivers out there, and this Edge AI, I'm talking of experiential AI, conversational AI. So you have today aspirational population. So they have access to lots of things that maybe younger folks, older folks like us didn't have. And then there's 5G that actually is going to come and become ubiquitous, right? And like Ganesh Ji said, AI is now passé. We shouldn't be talking of AI anymore as the next new thing. Edge AI is where the compute power of devices, like you have the world's best IoT device in your hand, which is your mobile phone. So the compute power of devices coupled with 5G communication, IoT, and the aspirations of people gives you these drivers to adopt technology, right? And for that, you can use this paradigm to enable lots and lots of different use cases. So the use cases we see for conversational AI, of course, and experiential AI is in the areas of, you could say, mobility. In fact, mobility is a huge thing. We think it will come up. Mobility, fintech, edutech, IoT itself. And IoT, typically people talk of IoT as a B2B thing. But the B2C promise of IoT, where you have fridges talking to you or microwaves talking to you, those are of course extreme examples. Those also are now becoming reality, where you can actually converse and interact through touch screens, through AR, VR. So that's how we see, the edge paradigm with these drivers, allowing you to expand the scope of edge AI to these domains. So that's how I think this will go beyond where we are from the cloud.
Thanks, Ganesh, yes, for that. I totally foresee how we are going to interact with. I can tell my coffee machine, "Hey, make a coffee for me." Right? I can totally foresee that. But whenever we talk about solutions, whenever we talk about technology evolution or maturity, we, as most of you pointed it out, customer experience, right? That becomes core of all these technologies. How are we going to use innovation? How are we going to use technology to build customer experience or provide that best experience to them? On that point, Neil, how do you see, and it comes back to the question that one of the audience asked, why is it a defined or predefined questionnaire? How are we going to bring in experience when you build virtual agents, right? Based on your experience and your interaction with different other segments of customers, where do you see conversation design playing a major role?
So Ashwin, see, a successful design is derived from intelligence, which you derive from, and in order to derive more razor sharp intelligence, you need more data at hand. That is going to be possible if we are leveraging the data, the huge data set that's available in the enterprise repository and stocked in different applications. If we are successfully able to do that, then providing personalized customer experience across touch points is going to be possible. And by doing that, we would be able to leverage real-time data for delivering intuitive solutions to customers. So I think that's where innovation has to go, and it has to the scalability that has started, the scalability in innovation, in conversational design, deriving different intelligence and providing personalized solution for customers. That what has kickstarted with the inception or the starting of this pandemic should continue, and we would be able to take this innovation quite a few notch up in the coming days.
Thanks, Neil, for that. I've just received a question from the audience, and this is a question that I myself have asked multiple times, and a lot of business stakeholders have asked me when we go on exploring conversational AI for them. So happy if any of you could take this question. This is around ROI. How do we see the investment or the ROI when we invest into conversational AI technologies, especially with a small and medium-sized customer? Is conversational AI like any other technology, like RPA? Is it aligned to ROI, or we bring in more tangents to it, saying that, hey, customer experience, customer retention, acquisition, or do we just say that it's ROI?
Ashwin,
Ganesh ji, yeah.
So I think first and foremost, this is, I think, a pretty important product for both SMEs as well as large customers, right? And there is typically limited investment cost in this business, because the typical way customers are charged is on usage, right? And typically this technology is definitely more applicable, I would say, or definitely applicable a lot to SMEs. Simply because if you're a typical SME, right, you have some of these problems that we talked about earlier, right? You're going to talk about, if I scale, what do I do about it? Do I need to have CapEx? Do I, how do I, enhance the customer experience? I mean, it's very important for, I would say, smaller enterprises or medium-sized enterprises to also quickly adopt this. And we are seeing, and typically they tend to be often ahead of the innovation curve compared to large enterprises. And I think there is definitely a huge opportunity for, I would say, multiple of these companies to embrace this, right? Because we are talking about the typical benefits of this technology being the typical problems that a small enterprise or a medium-sized enterprise would face. So I would say quickly, learn and adopt about this technology, and there are enough opportunities to make that happen.
Thanks, Ganeshji. I think just to add, I think your previous response on pre-built use cases, right, for insurance or for any other sector where you can just plug and play, right, that also would reduce the implementation time and the implementation cost, which helps us go to market faster, especially for a brand like a CPG or for a retail brand. If they need to go to market faster, that plays an important role, and that helps look at ROI as well. I have one last question. I myself have been an audience of this esteemed panel. So one last question. We as Indians, we have different dialects that we have, different languages, different way of pronunciation, vernacular, colloquialism. How will virtual agents or assistants understand all of this? Or do we build it for all of it? Or do we go ahead with a strategy saying that, hey, we're going to target the first the lot of users? Or how do we go about it? Because vernacular plays an important role in terms of experience as well and adoption as well. So if anybody could take that question, please.
Is it okay if I take that question, Ashwin, or is there somebody else who wants to take it?
I think Ganeshji, you can take that question, please.
So I think first and foremost, what you said is extremely important and not just restricted, obviously, for India, but globally as well, right? As you find people from different regions having different accents, different colloquial expressions, right? And so I think the most important piece here is the technology is there in place, right? And obviously it starts with the core tech, right? And then applies down to your NLU and your other components. The key important factor here is if you looked at, for example, in an Indian context, if you looked at the Google KPMG survey, right, it says that 9 out of 10 new folks coming to the internet, right, prefer to speak in a non-English language and would not understand English fluently, right? So this is a very powerful factor. I mean, as it is, that in a typical contact center, for example, even in India, right, you'd find 70% of the whole contact center experience being in Hindi. And a bunch of these regional languages typically take about 15%. And finally, you have, say, about 10 to 15% for English. Now, when it comes to the future, right, it is going to be more so. As a lot of, I would say, economically mobile folks, right, are people from tier 2, tier 3 cities and who are extremely comfortable in their own language. So it is very important, to offer these automation services so that they enjoy the benefits of this whole customer experience. So I would say, yes, today the technology is there in terms of the deep tech, and it is in a position to offer these services to all the customers. Again, whether you're talking about, Tamil like me coming from Mumbai, right, and speaking in that kind of accent in Hindi, or somebody with, a Midwestern drawl in the US, right? So the technology is there to understand what that person is saying, right, and act accordingly. So I think it is important, like you correctly said, to address all this. And most of us would do customer service in our own language, right? If we call customer service, we would love to talk in our own language, right? And so it's very important for these conversational bots to address, the requirements of every particular language and also the colloquial terms.
Thanks, Ganeshji. I can see two more hands, Ben and Neil, but we're running short of time. So Ben and Neil, if we could, I'll come to you, Ben. A quick takeaway or thought from your end, please.
Sure, very quick one. I'm certainly least qualified to talk about Indian dialects in this audience, but I can share some insights from an international perspective. We translate our web pages in more than 50 languages, sometimes mandated by government, sometimes just because we feel it's better for our customers. What we find is a disproportionate use of the English websites, up to 70–80%, despite our international footprint. And from that, one could infer that that your digital literacy or proficiency is somewhat correlated with the command of English. Now, would that be a reason to neglect those dialects or languages? Probably not. It's probably quite the opposite, because I think we are especially looking at the groups who are not that, let's say, comfortable with digital interfaces, who would find voice conversations as tremendously helpful. But this would only work if they are discoverable, right? So I think that's one last encouragement, right? Those conversational interfaces, they have to be highly discoverable for those and frictionless for that audience and target segment to use.
Yeah, very true. Discoverability plays an important role. Thanks for that, Ben. Neil, a very quick view from you.
Yeah, so Ashwin, what I spoke earlier in terms of having present in the right channel, I think what you spoke about language ability, it gives you I mean, it's the same importance that it plays. Just quickly narrating an example, when we were going to Southeast Asia, we had to build capabilities in local language because 70% of the large economies there interact in local language. So going to countries like, we were the first conversational AI platform to go to Cambodia and build bots in Khmer for a large national telco there, and that's where we saw adoption. So you have to be, I mean, you can be a global player, your capabilities in maybe a few core languages, but you should have the capability of localization and understanding the colloquialism if you're looking to scale globally. So having the global outlook and the local capability is the way to success in order to drive higher adoption.
All right, thank you so much, Neil. I think we have Ivan who's butted in, saying that we are ran out of time. Ivan.
No, go ahead. You can conclude. Not an issue.
Okay, awesome. So Ganesh, I think you have raised your hand. Please, if you could give 2 cents of your thought.
Sure. So I don't want to take too much time. From our point of view, we don't do conversational AI, but I'll just go back to the way we look at it. So the time has come really to look at edge AI, experiential AI, all from the perspective of the customer, using the drivers and the paradigm. So, I'd like to end on a very hopeful note that, most of the stuff we've talked about is doable, is happening today, and is poised to actually be of huge value to the customer, whether it's conversations, experiences, all of the different aspects that the different panelists talk about. So just wanted to end it with saying that, the time is now. And like somebody said, I think the Eskimo saying, right? So that's exactly where we are.
Thank you so much, everyone. I think this was informative and more educative session for me, and I hope for the audience as well. I took a lot of takeaways from here: experiential AI, edge AI, discoverability, setting customer expectations, and out-of-the-box solutions, and vernacular localization. Thank you so much for all your time, and it was great to have you all here. Over to you, Ivan.
You're absolutely right, Ashwin. And if you say, being a conversational intelligence lead at PwC, that this was a learning experience for you, can you believe, for us sitting in the audience, how much of a learning experience this was? Because the discussion around all the subjects that you mentioned and the evolution and maturity of conversational intelligence and automating customer interactions. I mean, it was just a masterclass. I mean, I'm honest, and I'm sure I'm echoing the sentiments of all the members of this audience. And thanks to you for posing those questions to our all-star panel of Benjamin Bosch, Ganesh Suryanarayanan, Ganesh Gopalan, and Neil Burman. And fantastic insights, cutting-edge insights, examples that were given to substantiate what they were saying. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for taking time off from your busy schedule and joining us at the Economic Times Intelligent Automation Summit 2021. Not easy to hold the audience at this time, being the penultimate session, but you did a fantastic and admirable job. We wish you and your respective organizations the very best going forward. And Ashwin, last but not least, thank you for doing a fabulous job of moderating this wonderful panel.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
Do stay tuned in, ladies and gentlemen. We will be back on the other side with the final session of this summit.